be kind of following along the workflow for a commercial here. So hey, everyone that is here, and thank you for attending on this, maybe it's dark and rainy where you are. It's dark and rainy here in Vancouver anyways, but dark and rainy Tuesday, I believe it is. So yeah, we're going to be kind of covering a couple things here in this webinar. I'm just going to go through the webinar page here to kind of summarize for you guys. Now, before we move on, I wanted to mention as well that we're recording this webinar. So if you have any questions or I'm going too fast for you, you can record or you can watch that later on your own time. We're going to be sending you a link via email. So you can watch this recording on your own time. And if you have any questions, we're going to be doing a Q&A session at the very end of this webinar. In the last 10 minutes or so, we're going to be doing a Q&A. So if you have any questions, there is a Q&A section in your Zoom panel there. Just enter into the Q&A section there and put in your question, and we'll get to the Q&A at probably the last 10, 15 minutes of the webinar. Okay, so I think that's about it. Also, we're going to be sending out a survey for you guys. So if you have any feedback, any suggestions for future webinars, any ideas, we're always looking for more ideas, what kind of stuff you guys are interested in learning about. So feel free to put that in there, and any other suggestions or feedback you want. Yeah, I think that about covers the basics. So we're going to move right into the live demo here. I think that covers it. So again, we're going to be covering a couple things here. Dynamic title creation. You can see right here. This is probably where you signed up, so you don't need me to spend too much time on all this stuff here. We're going to talk about all these things and hopefully get into the music as well. Really depends on time. If we go faster, we'll be able to add in some music at the end. Very simple stuff. But anyways, let's move on. Let's get started with the demo. Okay, so I'm going to basically just be showing you the video first here for the demo that we're going to be providing here, or showing you. Okay, so you can see I have, this is the renders that I've created here, commercial 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are all different projects that I rendered separately, and I combined them in Adobe Premiere. And this is the final product right here. Okay. Just so you're aware, I'm not going to be answering any questions from the chat window. I do have an assistant here that's answering any questions in the chat window as we move along. But any questions from me, I'm going to answer from the Q&A section there. Okay. So here's the commercial.
Ever feel like the world is just passing you by? Like you keep walking and walking, but your life is going nowhere? Like you're literally trying to walk forward, but the animator of your project won't allow you to change your transform position? Well, luckily, we've got just the thing for you. Introducing the Thingamabob, a strange-looking but life-saving companion that can help you move with its magical feet thingies. Now you can party like a normal human. Everyone loves a guy who can move. The Thingamabob is also a loyal companion for those who are lacking in the friends department. Bring your Thingamabob to the gym as a motivator. Car trouble? Leave it to Thingamabob. Thingamabob can even help you create awkward small talk in the elevator. Who could that be in the bathroom? Thingamabob, you little scamp. So, what are you waiting for? Order your very own Thingamabob today for the low, low price of only $299,999.99. Ever feel like the...
All right, so that's about it. A little bit cheesy there. Sorry about that, but it's a little project I put together for you. And we're going to basically be kind of recreating the first scene of that commercial, whatever you want to call it is, okay? The Thingamabob, and I'm going to be walking you through step by step, kind of going through the basics. I know some of you may be beginners, so I'm going to try and take it a little bit slow. But hopefully, again, if I move too fast for you, put any questions in the Q&A section, or you can also watch on your own time the recording. We're also streaming this, I believe, live on Facebook and YouTube as well. Okay, so let's get started. Let's play this project first. So I'm going to just move my Zoom panel up here. It's kind of in the way. You can't see it, but I can. Okay, so I'm going to play back the project right here. This is the first part. And you can see, notice here at the bottom in the timeline where my mouse is right now, you can see there's two little markers here. That indicates the beginning and the end of your project. So your playback is not going to go beyond those two markers, okay? And you can place those wherever you want by clicking and dragging them. Like I can click and drag this one like this, and to wherever I want. Okay. And the same with the beginning one. All right, but let's go ahead and just play this back just so you can see what it looks like when it's not rendered, when it's still in the project window here. Okay.
Ever feel like the world is just passing you by? Like you keep walking and walking, but your life is going nowhere? Like you're literally trying to walk forward, but the animator of your project won't allow you to change your transform position? Well, luckily, we've got just the thing for you.
Cool. All right. So that's pretty simple, easy stuff. We're going to go ahead and start that from scratch. So I'm going to go to a new project at the top. You can also use the Control N hotkey, and we're going to just load in a scene. So if you go to our scene tab over here, you can find a bunch of scenes in the scene folder here. Now, if you twirl this down, you can see I've purchased some separate ones from the content store, like the Metro City, Working Place, all these different scenes. Lots of cool stuff you can find in the content store. Highly recommend checking that out in addition to the marketplace. My good friend Gary Pye sells a lot of really high quality stuff in the marketplace, so make sure you check that out as well. But we're going to go to the scene folder right here, and this is the stuff that's embedded with CrazyTalk Animator. It comes included. Okay, so we're going to go down and find, there's one called, we're in this one, outdoor scene, right? Okay, there we go. So just double click the scene and it'll add. Okay, and if you want, basically you can just go down to the scene manager here. The content manager and the scene manager are two different tabs, and you can see all the different stuff that is in your scene. Okay, skyline. And let's just hold the Alt key. The way I normally zoom out is I hold the Alt key and I scroll my mouse wheel, or need to make sure we don't have anything selected first. Okay, so click off here. Otherwise, you're going to move stuff in your scene. Okay, and let's just go ahead and zoom out just like this. You can hold your Alt key and click both mouse buttons at the same time to zoom out like this. You can also scroll your mouse wheel in and out. Okay, just make sure for some reason that thing is still selected. Okay, we probably have to click off the scene here. There we go, like this. All right, so click in an empty area and then the scroll mouse button will work, okay? So hold Alt and Shift and scroll at the same time, Alt and Shift, and you can zoom in and out really fast like that. If you have a really big scene, you can go just like that, okay? But generally you just wanna keep Alt and both mouse buttons. That's the way I generally scroll. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring in the first character to our project first, okay? So Alt and left mouse button will pan just like this, okay? So if you want to pan through your scene, Alt and the left mouse button. Just go ahead and use that. And we're going to zoom in right about here on the sidewalk in front of this nondescript building. So the first thing we're going to do is add a character into the scene. Oh, before we do that, I wanted to mention we have the 3D view as well. So if you want to see stuff in 3D view, there's this 3D view button up here. You can see mousing over it right now. You can click that, and then you can use those same controls. In this view, if you hold Alt and left, you're going to pan side to side. But if you hold Alt and right mouse button, you're going to rotate around like this, okay? Just like this. And you can kind of see where things are on the 3D plane. You can move them forward and back if you want, just like that, okay? So you can see this traffic light here is in front of everything else, obviously, okay? All right, just so you're aware of the 3D view there, let's bring in our character. And we're going to have our character just walking in like you saw earlier. Okay, not too much to explain there. So I'm going to go to the actor tab over here, and under character, just like this, we will find the G3 humans. These are the template default characters that come with CrazyTalk Animator 3. And we're not going to talk about how to customize characters in this webinar. That's a topic for other webinars. So let's go ahead and click and drag our G3 character into the scene. Doesn't matter where we click and drag him. We can even double click him to add him to our scene, but he'll just kind of pop in like that. And there we go. If we want to resize him to make him look a little bit smaller, do that by clicking and dragging on the edge, just like this. Okay. You can shorten him down like that as well, just by clicking and dragging on either axis. And if you want to resize using the numbers here, you can go ahead and up here, there's a width and a height scale. Okay. If we lock it, see, for example, we can just type in 100 right here. And it'll go to, I think I just kind of made the height a little bit longer or larger there, but 100 to 100, we'll just say, okay? If you want to lock them, you can lock them to like 50. So there he is, like mini-me, 50% of the height. All right, 100. All right, let's just leave them at, I don't know, something a bit smaller there. Okay, and if you want to flip your character from side to side, very easy. You can just use this horizontal flip, okay? Just like this. Cha-cha-cha. Okay, and pretty simple stuff. Now, the first thing I want to do here is I want to bring in our narrator. That was my voice doing the commercial, in case you're not aware. Sounds pretty similar, hopefully. But we're going to bring, in order to kind of apply a voice to a character, in order to even have a narrator voice, we have to have a character to apply that voice to. Okay. There's other ways we can do it, but generally I just recommend this just to make things easier. Even if your narrator is not on the screen, not seen, I'm just going to go over here to G3 Freebone, and I have this talking penguin here. Okay. Because I think he kind of looks like I sound in a way. All right, so there's our talking penguin. And what we're going to do to bring in that voice that I had earlier on the commercial, all you got to do is go up here to create script. Okay, so this is how you import audio onto your character. So you're going to create script. You can record your voice. You can use text to speech or a WAV file, and I'm going to use a WAV file in this case. Okay, and I'm going to choose this WAV file TB1. This is the commercial part 1. Okay, just like this.
Ever feel like the world is just passing you by? Like you keep walking and walking, but your life is going nowhere? Like you're literally trying to walk forward, but the animator of your project won't allow you to change your transform position? Well, luckily, we've got just the thing for you.
Okay, and it just stops. And since that's basically the end of the project, I'm going to take my project slider here, end slider, and click and drag it and move it. We're going to have a little bit of a transition after that. So I'm just going to maybe click it and drag it to about there. And there we go. So obviously I don't want this penguin to be seen. You may want it to be seen in the corner or something like that as a narrator. But if you don't want it to be seen, the easiest way to make a penguin invisible is go up here to the visibility button. Okay. You can click and make it visible or invisible, just like that. Okay. You can see in the scene manager, there's our talking penguin right there. All right. It's still there. So if we want to access it at any point, we can click on it in the scene manager. All right, let's go back to our content manager here. And I think the first thing we're going to do is we have that character. He's going to be basically just walking, I think, the whole time for the most part. Okay, so we just play back just like this.
Ever feel like the world is just passing you by?
So we need our character to be walking. Now, I'm just going to be using template animations, like preset, pre-done animations. For the most part, I'm going to be customizing them a little bit. Let's go to our animation tab here and into the motion section here, and G3 human. We should have under here elastic folks side. Okay, so this character is side facing, in case you can't tell by the position of his feet there. We're just going to go ahead and select elastic folks side and select move. And there's a bunch of these are embedded with CrazyTalk Animator, so you should all have these. There's jumps, there's runs, and there's steps. There's Superman flies, and there are walks. Okay, so there's 3 walks. There's walk 1S. The S stands for start. The L here stands for loop on walk 2L, and the E stands for end on walk 3 end. Okay, so I'm just going to double click the walk 1S. That's going to bring our character to start walking. It's going to take his first step. Okay, and after that, we're just going to go ahead and double click this walk 2. So he's going to take another another set of steps. Okay. Now, I mean, you can double click and double click and double click this walk 2L as long as you want. And it's going to just keep on applying and applying that same motion clip to your character. But the easiest way to, if you have a repetitive motion, is to press the F3 hotkey and go into the timeline. You can also go down here and select this button here, show timeline. Okay. And what we're going to do, a very important thing that I like to tell everyone here is click this button over here. It says object related tracks. Okay. And when you click that, it's only going to bring up the objects that you have selected in your scene. Okay. So it makes your timeline a bit cleaner. Let's just bring this up a little bit. Zoom in on our character here. Okay. And what we're going to do is open up the motion track here. Okay. So in the motion track, you can see in the motion section here, in the motion track, you can see there's walk 1S and there's walk 2L right here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make the volume down for now because we don't want the volume to be messing with our demo here. So this is a speech volume, by the way, for the entire project. Okay. So if we play back, you can see he'll do those walks and we just press the space key to play back. Okay, so I think the walking is a little bit too fast since he's depressed. He's not like, he doesn't have any jump in his step. what we can do is we can make that walk longer. We can make his steps take longer by going up here and using the speed option. Okay, so there's loop right here and there's speed. So I'm going to select speed for now, and I'm going to click and drag this maybe to about frame 40 something. Okay, we'll see how long it is now by pressing the space key. Just like that. And by the way, I'm moving through the timeline by clicking in this little area up here, clicking and dragging my playback head, okay, playhead, whatever you call it, just like this, okay, left clicking and dragging. So I'm going to play back. I think it's maybe even a little too fast still, so let's take it to about 45, and then it'll go even slower. Okay, so after we've done, establishing the speed that we want our character to walk at, what we can do then is go back to loop right here. You can also use the Alt-L hotkey. Okay, so I'm going to select loop. Now, zooming in and out of the timeline, a very useful tip here is to hold the Alt key when you're in the timeline. So if you've clicked up here, hold the Alt key and scroll your mouse button, okay? You can zoom in and out like that. Very, very useful hotkey. Alt and scrolling your mouse button to zoom in and out of the timeline. Again, make sure you've clicked in the timeline. So I'm going to zoom out pretty far, basically so we can see the end of our project, which is this little red marker over here. And I'm going to loop it. So left click and drag this clip on the edge, and you can loop it as many times as you want. We'll loop it all the way to the very end, okay? And if we play back, our character's going to be like walking like this. Do, 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 do. All right. Having a nice stroll down the street, except he's not really moving anywhere. And that's kind of the joke, because we're not changing his transform position. He's stuck in life. Stupid joke, but either way, let's continue on. Okay, so our character looks a little bit too chipper, since he's kind of in a depressing, one of those before-after commercials. He's in a depressing state right now. So what we want to do is we want to go to frame 1. Okay, so here we are at frame 1. You can also use this button here to go to start or to the finish, just like this. Okay, start, finish. And we're going to make our character look a little bit sad. So the way we do that, like Charlie Brown when he's walking with his head down like that, we're going to just basically imitate that. So let's go over here with our character selected and go to the 2D motion key editor. Okay, now this is going to modify the bone positions for your body, any of your body bones on your character. I'm just going to click on his head bone. Okay, you can also select it from the key editor over here, and you can see when I hover over the outside, the cursor changes into like a rotation one, and you can just bring him down like that. Okay, and we can even take his chest, his entire chest, and rotate that a bit down as well, just like this. Okay, so he's kind of like down in the dumps, and that's going to basically add a keyframe. You can see here when I do that, it automatically opens up the head T and the torso T. Those are the two keyframes that I added. One for the torso, which is right here, torso, and one for the head, which is right here. Okay, you can see those tracks automatically appear in the hip transform timeline, or track there rather. Okay, if I were to select, this left arm, for example, you can see left arm will appear. Okay, and the hip T will still appear there as well. But we're just going to go ahead and stick with that. So that's all we have our character doing. Basically, for the entire duration of the project, he's going to be down like that. So now if I play back, you'll see, dun, 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 just like this. He just has his head down, but he's still smiling. So what we want to do is want to give him a frown. All right. Easiest way to give your character a frown is to go over here to the face key editor. Okay. Face key editor. I'm going to click on that, and our character is now there. And we're going to just go over here. This is not a morph-based character, so you don't want to worry about this morph tab. Okay. The template tab is really useful. That gives you preset facial expressions. There's also transform and deform, which you can modify individual features. But we'll talk about that in the next webinar, where we talk about character dialogue between two characters. Okay, so for this one, we're just going to go ahead and use a template. And the template tab right here, we're going to select an expression style. So obviously, we don't want happy. Let's choose something like sad. Okay, so you can see here, sad. He's still kind of smiling. There, that's kind of a really sad expression. Maybe too sad, these ones here. Okay, that one's okay. That one's okay. That one, he's still kind of smiling. Maybe that's a happy sad. Okay. So what you can do is we'll just choose something like, I don't know, this sad one right here. Okay. And if you think that, the expression is too strong, you can adjust the expression level. Okay. Just like this. Okay. So there's an expression slider, and we can, change that expression slider down, and just like this. Okay. Maybe right there. Okay, and what we're going to do is have him just basically walk the entire project. And let's see, head down. Yep, he's smiling. And then we'll just go ahead and play this back here. And then we'll do the camera animation really quickly. So the character just walking like this for the entire project. Okay, I don't want to make you wait the entire time. You can also click and drag this little playhead here and make him walk faster back and forth. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to animate the camera, because we want the camera to kind of like slowly zoom in on him. Now, if you want to animate the camera, the easiest way to do that is to go up here and select this camera record mode. Okay, so select camera record mode, and you notice that when we do that, it basically changes to the default root position. So again, we need to reposition our camera right about here. Okay. Now, the important thing to note here for your camera is the red box. Okay, you can see a vague, kind of a small red box, and that's going to be what's recorded. So anything outside of that red box is not going to be recorded in your project. All right, keep that in mind. I know that's common sense to some of you, but there are some beginners here as well. So let's go ahead and start at frame 1. Okay, we're going to go all the way back to all the way down to the part where our narrator says, oh, we need to make sure our volume is up there first. So let's, maybe I think about here.
Just the thing for you.
Right here.
Luckily, we've got just the.
So he says, luckily, we've got just the thing for you. So right here, we want our character to stop walking. Okay. But before we do that, we want to like zoom in the camera. Okay. So this is a very simple camera transform. If you want to access your camera, you can go over here to the track list, and in the project, you'll find your camera. Okay, you can click on these X's here and just delete everything else, or not delete them, remove them from the timeline. And you can see here in the camera, if we are a project section here, we select camera, we'll see one keyframe right here at the very beginning. And right here is probably where we want to end our zoom in to our character. So we can do this two ways. We can just double click in this track here, or we can simply zoom in. So notice when I zoom in, it's going to automatically add a keyframe right here. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in on our character, on his torso, right about here. We want him to be the focus, like right here at this point. Make room for his head when it turns up right. Okay,
Just
now we have this. All right. Now, we won't talk about camera transitions or transition curves or anything like that right now. That's for more detailed animation later on. But here we have it.
Ever feel like the world is just passing you by? Like you keep walking and walking, but you're
not a quick camera zoom, a very slow, dramatic camera zoom. Ooh, all right. So that's about it. And then what we're going to do, because I don't want to mess up my camera animation, I'm going to deselect this camera record mode and go back into regular mode. So if you're ever curious, you'll have a big record in the top right of your viewport there. If you don't have that, you're not recording the camera movements, okay? So deselect that, and here we go. So when the narrator is saying something encouraging, like, but wait, we have something for you. I think that was the dialogue anyways. But
luckily, we've got just the.
So he said, well, luckily.
Your transform position. Well, luckily.
So here, at this point here, we want our character to stop walking and, pay attention to the narrator and kind of have a perky, happy look on his face. So we need to do a couple things here. Let's make sure we have our character selected, and you can see the elastic folks will appear. We can close the project track down. We want to first stop our character's motion. So I'm going to go to the motion track here, and you can see all those looped walking clips right there. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in on the timeline. I'm just going to go ahead and click right about here. Doesn't really matter where. I'm going to just click on that track, and I'm going to right click on the clip there, and I'm going to break it, okay? Because we want this animation to stop. So it's going to break into two clips. We don't want this last part of the walk. So we're going to select that and delete it, okay? Pressing the delete key. And then we're going to use that walk end that I showed you earlier. Okay, so the walk 3 end.
We've got just.
All right. So don't pay attention to the screen right now. If we select walk 3 end, you'll notice that there's like a little section here where my mouse is that's kind of like overlapping. So I can click and drag this section. That's the transition area. So that's where it's transitioning from one clip to the next. Now we can expand that if we want. Let's pay attention to his feet here. If we have this, from here to here, let's take a step and play back. And I'm going to just take this off now, the volume. Okay, so you can see it kind of just delays a little bit, like that, okay? So just this whole area is kind of just stuck. All right, so you can just decrease that transition area, okay, by clicking and dragging it like this. Okay, maybe even a little too much. And if we want, we can even take this clip even closer and like that. But probably the best way is to take out the transition area altogether, because these two clips are meant to be together without a transition. So just like that. All right, and we can even move it even closer just like this. That's better. Okay, good. So play back. All right, so we stopped. And at this point here, we also want him to, perk up his head, obviously. Oh, one thing we need to do, I forgot to mention here, is he's obviously at the very beginning right here. His head is down, but it'll gradually move up as we move along. And the reason for that is because I didn't put keyframes before this next clip. So what it's doing is it's slowly transitioning from these keyframes here to these keyframes here throughout the duration. So in order to prevent that, what we can do is we can go ahead and select the characters. Let's go to open the body motion key track here, motion key editor. And again, select our character's torso here. You can see the torso transform position and the head transform position. Okay, what we need to do is copy both those keyframes. So I'm going to select both these keyframes here, shift select them. I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy them. All right. Another easy way you can do this, there's another easier way, but I'll just go with this for now. I'm just going to go back to this frame, down to this frame right here. And because this is basically how long we want him to be, downtrodden for. So let's just go ahead and press Control V. That's going to paste those. And then from this keyframe to this keyframe is when he'll start raising up like that. Okay. So you can see the two keyframes right there. I'm just going to zoom in really quickly here so you can see a bit better. So from here to here, you'll see his head will transition up to the beginning of this clip. Okay. So just like that. So good. All right. So nice smooth transition. And obviously we want to change his expression as well. So at the same time, we're going to click on the face key editor and I'm going to basically what we're going to do here is we can just double click or click on the sad one again here and change that expression down to whatever it was before. Okay. And then here we're going to add a curious expression. So like maybe surprise, something like this. Okay, let's just zoom in on his face so we can see it there. So here, sad, transition to surprise. Sad, transition to surprise. All right. And that's all done in the face track here, by the way. I'm going to close down the motion track, open up the face track here. Under facial motion, if you go into here, you'll see all the face transforms and all this stuff. Sprites, deforms down here. But yeah, you can see the facial clip here is what we're containing all the motions in. Okay, so we have that all taken care of, just like this. And I think that's about it for this character. I'm just going to show you quickly before we move on to the next part where we talk about the titling and the elastic motions. I'm going to show you quickly how to transform characters, make them run across the screen. So you may have remembered that cop and that robber running across the screen earlier. Okay, I'm going to close this down. So we have our character's animation, okay? And let's just zoom out and play it back really quick. We'll just make it faster, actually. So walking and then, but wait, make sure our volume is up.
Well, luckily, we've got just the thing for you.
And we can even maybe give him like a more surprised expression right here. or happy. Let's try a happy one here. There we go.
We've got just the thing for you.
And then he opens his mouth. Okay, good. So once that's taken care of, let's bring our cop and robber in here. Let's go to the actor tab and G3 silhouettes and poses. This is a separate content pack you can purchase from the content store, by the way. G3 bonus silhouettes and poses. Characters, we have a cop and a robber. All right. So for this section here, I'm going to make sure I'm at frame 1, by the way. And I'm going to bring my burglar S side facing in. Just click and drag him in. And then I'm going to bring my, first I'm going to make the burglar run across. So let's make the burglar kind of run behind the character. So since we're at frame 1, we're not going to be animating the character at all. Let's just click this little doodad at the bottom here. This little icon right here allows you to move your character back and forth on the Z-axis, just like this. Okay. And let's make sure he's behind this light pole as well. Okay, there we go. All right. So the starting position of the burglar depends on the starting position of our camera. We want it to be off screen at first. Okay. So let's go ahead back to camera record mode here. And let's take a look at where our burglar is. He's off the screen. So what we're going to do here is make sure he's off the screen right here and bring him like maybe over this way a little bit. Go into camera record mode and just maybe position him over here. Okay, just off the screen. Okay, and what we're going to do is apply a run to our character. Really simple. Again, just animation and go to the move. And we're going to go to the run loop, okay? We're not going to worry about starting and ending his run because he's just running through the scene. So again, click run.
Ever feel
like that. And we'll have the character press F3. We'll have him just running through the entire scene. Okay, so go to the motion track with the burglar selected. And just make sure that you have the track selected, or the clip rather. Make sure the loop is activated. And we're going to hold Alt, or rather than Alt, just click and drag the run throughout the entire project there. Now, when do we want the character to start running across the scene? That really depends on us. We can go to the transform track here. Transform is the position of the character, okay? The position of the character on the screen. So
feel like the world is just
let's see, or go to our camera record mode here.
passing by.
At this point here, we want him to start running through the scene, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just double click on the transform track. And that's going to begin our characters, that's going to add a keyframe to begin our character's movement. And what we're going to do is, I don't know, how long do we want him to run for? Just like this. And we can have him maybe click and drag across the scene just like this. And we want to move him a little bit further. It doesn't really matter at this point. Take a look at the speed of that movement. Okay.
But you keep walking and walking, but your life is going nowhere.
He's a little bit
like
slow.
You're literally,
you know, maybe he's a little bit chunky. If we want him to be faster, we can take that second keyframe and we can click and drag it and move it closer. Okay, move it closer to the first one. It'll be more like this.
Like you keep walking and walking, but your life is going.
Okay, and if we want it to be further down somewhere, we can make sure we have that keyframe selected. By the way, you can press Tab and Shift Tab, okay, to skip to different keyframes. Okay, a very useful hotkey. If you are, you know, just transitioning between frames that you want, press Tab. It'll transition to the next keyframe on that track. Okay, and Shift Tab will go to the previous one. All right, useful little hotkey there. What I can also do is you can see if I mouse over this little destination marker right here, I can click and drag that further along. Okay, so that's a way I can move it. I can move his transform position.
Like walking, but your life is
further down. Okay, so he's out of the red recording area, so that's good. That's all we need. Okay, so then let's have the police officer kind of follow him along. So let's go to frame 1 here. Go out of camera record mode and bring in our police officer right there. He's called Popeye, Popeye the police officer, and click and drag him into our scene as well. That's just begin in just a second. And once we do that, we'll have him basically just repeat the same thing, just the distance. Oh, we replaced the character. Okay, So what you don't want to do is you don't want to click and drag the character onto another character, because if you do that, it's going to replace the character. Okay. So what I did is I just clicked and dragged my burglar onto the police officer. Now I just changed it back. All right. So we'll click and drag him to somewhere that's not the burglar. Okay. Like over here, for example, and that'll just import him in without swapping out the character. All right. So apply the same animation to the police officer at frame 1. Animation, just run loop. Okay. And just double click it.
Ever feel
Now, they're going to be running at the exact same speed, which is probably something we don't want. Let's say the police officer is a little bit larger, a little bit longer legs. So we'll go to the motion track here. And just like I did before, we're going to stretch out that motion clip here. Okay, so click it and make it a little bit longer like that.
ever feel like the world is just
Okay, so he's just going to be at a slightly different pace as the burglar, because it looks weird if they're running exactly in tandem, obviously. Okay, so let's go ahead and okay, so let's go ahead and click our character, the police officer, make sure he's in the right position. Now, if you move him at a frame that you don't want to move him at, like right now we're at frame 27, like this, move the character behind the robber. It doesn't really matter because we're not really worrying about where he is off screen. So from frame 1 to frame 27, he's going to just kind of move like this. Again, that doesn't matter because he's going to be moving off screen anyways. What we want to make sure we do is at the transform track here, make sure we have this keyframe. And then
the world is just passing you by, but you keep walking, but your life.
Okay, I'm just going to take that scrubbing off there because the voice is probably getting in the way there. Okay, so this is where the burglar ends. Okay, at this frame probably. Let's click on his hand to see. All right, yeah, so this frame is where the burglar's transform position stops. So because we want the police officer to arrive there a little bit later, let's go to maybe like this frame, for example, and we'll have that police officer then move into the same position. Okay, so what we can do is just click on him then, and we'll move him way over there, just like that. All right, boom, there we go. And then what we have is we have two people running after each other. Okay, just like this. Oh, to make sure that we loop that animation. Okay, yes, loop the animation first. So the run for the police officer, loop it. Okay, just like this. Again, for the entire duration, doesn't really matter. And he is ahead of the burglar because I got the keyframes mixed up here. So we want him to be at the same position right here. And that transform is only going to start maybe about here. Okay, so I'm going to click and drag that beginning transform keyframe to about here, right? So this is when I'll start chasing after the burglar like this. That's just his beginning position, okay? So I think that's basically it for the animation. We're going to move on to the title really quickly here and then creating Thingamabob. So let's go ahead and play this back. We'll close down the timeline for now. And let's go to our record screen record mode and play it back. Oh, let's just add in the voice here just so we get the timing right.
Ever feel like the world is just passing you by? Like you keep walking and walking, but your life is going nowhere? Like you're literally trying to walk forward, but the animator of your project won't allow you to change your transform position?
Oh, and one more quick thing I wanted to add in there as well. I forgot to add in a couple of special effects. In the prop section here, we have some special effects. This is a special weather maker pack. I really highly recommend checking this pack out. You get tons of weather stuff if you have any sort of weather in your project at all. I'm just going to quickly show you how to throw those in there. I'm going to go to weather components here. There's a bunch of clouds. I'm going to put a dark cloud above our character. Let's go out of record mode here. And just some rain above him as well. Really easy to do. Just click and drag the cloud in here just like this. Place it above the character. Make sure we're at frame 1 again. And then we're going to have some rain. Now we can animate this cloud. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Let's go ahead to rain. And let's throw in some drizzle there. Okay, so let's just have it drizzling on the character. So click and drag the drizzle right here. And you can see the size of the drizzle is quite large. Okay, we don't want it to be that large. So let's just reduce the size by making it smaller here. Okay, just like this. and have it on our character like that. And we don't want to lock. So unlock the ratio. Otherwise, you won't be able to stretch it on different axes. Okay. So we'll stretch out the rain like this. Make sure it's behind the cloud there. Okay. And then that should be okay. At frame 1, we're just going to animate it. So right click this rain and drizzle loop. Okay.
Ever feel like the world is just passing you by?
All right. Now we need to make sure that we loop that drizzle again. So press F3 to go into our timeline, go to our motion track and just loop it. Same thing. Okay. Loop it throughout the duration of the project, just like this, or however long you want it. Okay. And that should be good. Looks like the transform position got kind of messed up there. Let's just make it smaller. There we go. And that should be good. So then if we zoom in on the character, because you can't see the drizzle from this distance really. It's a little bit too drizzly. Let's take a look at those white lines like this and play back.
Ever feel like the world is just passing you by? Like you keep walking and walking?
Okay, and that's really all I want to show you on that part. All right, so let's quickly take a look at the elastic motions and the creation of the title screen. Okay, the thingamabob. Let's go ahead and play this back. We don't need to play this back. And then if you want to save your project, what I'd recommend doing is at the very end of your project.
Thing for you.
We also need to add the transition as well. That's one more thing we need to do here. So in the same props tab, let's go to G3 Animated Props Transitions, and we can use whatever ones we want. There's pastel, like these basic ones. These are pretty cool. Maybe just a shape one or all sorts of different transitions that you can use. Maybe I'll just use a basic one like this or a classic. Let's go for the good old classic. I'm not going to get too fancy here. That's just the basic one here. Move 0, 1. Okay, so we want the transition to occur at this frame. So I'm going to click and drag and move this transition into my scene just like this, and it basically blocks everything out, which is fine. Let's go ahead and lock our ratio, and let's zoom out here. And the only thing we really need to care about here is making it the same size as the camera view here. Okay, so let's go to camera record mode here, and let's just move our transition into basically so that it encompasses the entire area of our red record, or the red record area there. Okay, so just something like this. And again, if we're doing this at frame 484, it's going to create like, keyframes every time I move or reposition things. You don't want that ideally. So what you want to do is right click after you've done all your positioning and everything and select remove object animation. Okay. And that's just going to basically remove any animation throughout the entire project. Okay. So let's play back.
Luckily, we've got just the thing for you.
Okay. So this is where we want to start the transition right after the just the thing for you. So let's right click our transition, go to the action menu and transition in. Okay. So it's going to just kind of bring a spectrum of colors across the screen like that. And then that's going to be the end of your project. And then if you want to remove that, make the transition go the other way, action menu and out. Okay. And it's going to reveal the next scene. All right. But we're not going to be worrying about the next scene at this point because we don't really have time to cover it. But I just wanted to show you that basic transition. Okay. Now, obviously, at the beginning, you're going to have this big box that you don't want. So just go ahead and click the invisibility button right there. Okay. Go to the place where you do want the frame, the transition. Okay.
We've got just the thing for you.
Let's go and press F3 and go into the timeline here just to see motion track where we first applied the transition here. Okay. This is frame 1 right here. So we want it to appear right here. So I'm going to make it visible. So here it's invisible and then visible, and it'll go across the screen like that. Okay, so that's your transition. And then we'll talk about how to transition out in another webinar. But what we want to do first here is we want to focus now on creating our character. We need to create Thingamabob really quickly and then bring him into, basically just give him a spine bone. And I'll show you how to animate him and give him a face really quickly here. And then we'll get to the Q&A. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and start a new project. Now, I wanted to mention as well, all these projects are available for download. So we're going to provide you for some download links so you can check out all these projects on your own. Every single one of these projects, you can take a look and deconstruct it on your own time there. Let's take a look quickly at how to create Thingamabob, okay? This is just like a simple character. I'm not going to save this project. Let's go to Actor. And Actor, we're going to G3 Spline. And in G3 Spline, we're going to use this spine dummy, okay? Just right here. So we can just double click and add this to our scene. And this is basically just a line that has bones, okay? Like it looks like a tiger tail or something like that. You can see right there, but it doesn't have stripes. So what we need to do is we need to take this into composer mode up here. So if we select composer, and you can see now that we have bone 1, bone 2, and you can see them in the hierarchy in the scene manager here as well. So what we want to do is if we select bone 1, I can go over here to the sprite editor, okay, in the sprite editor. And you can see it has a single sprite. If we select bone 2, there's no sprite. Bone 3, there's no sprite, okay. Bone 1 will have a sprite. And what we need to do is we need to replace this image with an image of Thingamabob. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select Replace Current Sprite. And I just need to find that folder. Looks like it's been a while since I was in this particular folder. A lot of folders to go through here. Sorry, guys. Commercial. All right, there's Thingamabob. So Thingamabob is basically just a poop emoji that I filled in with green, okay? So in case you're wondering, hey, where'd you get this awesome looking green blob? It's not really that awesome looking. It's just a poop emoji with the green filled in, all right? So I'm just gonna select this PNG. Now make sure it's a PNG file, obviously. You don't want it to be a JPEG. It needs to be a transparent PNG, all right? In this case, it's 1080 by 1080, fairly high dimension. Okay, fairly high resolution image. And that's what I recommend for doing this sort of thing. So just double click it and it'll appear in place of that white, whatever it was there. Now you can resize it if you want, okay? Just by clicking and dragging on the edges here, making it larger or smaller. I don't recommend resizing too much because you generally want to keep the original shape. But what you can do is you can close this and you can go to your bone editor. All right, bone editor right here. And you can just make your bones larger or smaller, or you can reposition them just like this. In that case, I'm going to reposition my base bone. And this bone up here will kind of maybe twirl a little bit to the side. This bone here, same thing. And we'll need to resize it a little bit, just make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so that's basically it. We have a character that is able to be animated, and we can close this down. Now, once we have this bone structure, we can select a bone, and we can add a face to that bone as well, okay? So if I select this bone, can be just like this. What I can do is I can go to the content manager and add a face to that. So let's go to the head tab over here. And we're just gonna add a head actually, okay, to our character. Let's just give him a G3 head front right here. Okay, make sure you have that bone selected that you wanna add the head to. In this case, probably bone 2 or bone 3 would do. But I'm just gonna go ahead and double click and throw on a head there. All right, so it looks small. We can resize it, make it larger, just like this. Now we don't have to worry about the pink part of his head or the nose or anything like that. We're just gonna resize him up like this. We're only gonna worry about the eyes, mouth, and maybe the eyebrows we'll throw in there as well, okay? So let's maybe bring him like this size and go to the scene manager here, or rather the layer manager. And what we can do is in the layer manager, we can delete the stuff we don't want, like the face, delete it, okay? Get out of here, face. And then we can take the hair, all right? Where is the hair? Back hair, and delete that as well. Okay, and you can see he has cheeks and a nose. We can take the nose, delete that. And we can leave those cheeks on if we want, or those are actually ears. They're actually ears behind the character's face there. And just delete all that stuff. Okay, so now what we have is a character like a thingamabob with a face and a bone structure. So let's go back into our stage mode here. All right, and there's thingamabob. And what we can do is we can use the 2D motion key editor I showed you before. We can animate him like this. We can take this like this and go wee. Okay, just move him around like that. Custom animation if we want. Or else we can go ahead and just reset all. We'll reset it back to the default position. Okay, by the way. And then we can also animate his face by going into the face key editor, or we can use the face puppet in this case. I'll just show you some quick face puppeteering here, since we haven't gotten into that yet. And just preview our character's face, just like this. Yeah. Okay. So again, he's attached to that bone in the middle. Okay. So anything like this will be, you can preview it. We can select a different expression, like a happy one. Ooh, I like that. Okay. So that's basically what it's all about there. And if you want to save your character, if you spent more than 5 minutes on him like I have here, you can go to the content manager and go to your actor tab and custom up here, and then just go into character and save your character just by, clicking down here and selecting add. Okay. And then you can just enter a name for him. Let's call him Blob. Okay. And there we go. And so that's how you create a character. And then once you have that character, you can apply elastic motions to him. Okay. So you can go to elastic motions here, and or rather not elastic motions. This character can use animations. The props can use elastic motions. All right. So the props is important. Now, to save Thingamabob as a prop, this is also very important. I'm going to go back to my composer before we apply any animations to him. We also want to save him as a prop so we can apply elastic motions to him. So if we have our character selected, we can export him to an external PSD editor. In this case, I've used Photoshop. Okay. And we'll just select head and body in a single file. Doesn't really matter in this case. Okay. And image scale, we'll leave it at this. Okay. We can talk more about those details if you have any other further questions. And that's going to basically launch Photoshop. And then just got to save him out as a PNG and then save him as a prop. This is the workaround to saving your character as a prop. Okay, so all I want to do here is make the spine invisible here. Okay, we don't want to have those spine bones. We don't want to have our talking head. We don't want to have the head bones. We just want to have this. Okay, apologies for the grid. You can take the grid off if you want, but we're just going to save this as a PNG file. So go to File, and there's a I think there's a quick save as PNG. Oh well. Somewhere there's a quick save as PNG. Maybe I'm in the wrong version of Photoshop. Anyways, we'll save it as a PNG, just like this. Okay, and save it to desktop, for example. We'll call it blob prop. Okay. Okay, and then we can close down Photoshop. And then we have Thingamabob, the actor. Go back to stage mode here. So he's an actor, which means he can use any of the animations for actors. So go to the animation tab here for the spine actors here. Okay, so the reason I chose that spine template is because now he can use any of these motions under spine. There's like special ones here. Let's just use the regular ones. Like jump and roll, for example. If we double click jump and roll, well, he'll jump and roll just like that. Okay, jump and tumble. Okay, so you can apply those animations to him from these files right here. Very quick and easy to do. You can have him jump back and forth. All right, now if you import in Thingamabob as a prop, which we're going to do right now, I can just go to the desktop here, his blob prop, and click and drag him in like this, and just import him in as a prop. Okay, so yeah, it'll resize the image. Don't worry about that. It's a fairly large size image. And there you go. So now he's a prop. So when he's a prop, he can basically, you can apply elastic motions to him. Okay, so you go to elastic motions here, and then like entrance, like elastic clip, he'll like jump into the scene like this. Okay, you can use these ones here as well, like throw in, for example. Okay, it really depends on the type of situation you're going for. So what you can do is you can use one of these throw-ins clips and make sure that your actor and the prop are the exact same size, and you can like discreetly replace one with the other. So you can make one invisible at the same frame you're making the other one visible. So let's say, for example, we had this guy at frame 1. Let's just remove object animation, play back. Okay, and then we're going to do is maybe move the actor over here, the exact same, relatively the same position. Okay, I'm just going to remove animation. At frame 1, we're going to make him invisible. So boing, boing, boing. And then at this frame, we're going to make the prop invisible. And we're going to go to the scene manager and make the spine dummy visible. Okay, so now we've done the old switcheroo. We switched it from an actor to a prop to an actor. Okay, and then you can just do the actor stuff like content manager, you know, use the face puppet to do whatever you want. Yeah, wow. Okay, props can't do that obviously because props don't have faces, according to CrazyTalk Animator. All right, that's all we're going to cover for now. If you have any questions, again, put those in the Q&A section, and I'll get to those as soon as I can. And all right, let's go ahead and start that. All right, so we didn't get into all the stuff. The music is very easy. What I did is I used music in Adobe Premiere. But if you want to learn how to add music to your scene, I can show you that in this webinar or the next one. If you're not able to, just let me know in the Q&A section, okay? All right, so Ethan has a question. Do you recommend me to use this software with my OPA as a cartoon type thing? I'm not sure if OPA is a person. Is it Peter Vroom? Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to be more specific on that, Ethan. Sorry, I'm not sure who OPA is. Maybe it's your father or something. I'm not sure. But he said Peter Vroom. So maybe just clarify who you're talking about there. But yeah, as an aside, I guess, you know, okay, grandpa. Okay. So yeah, I've actually used CrazyTalk Animator with my grandmother before. And I showed her like how to animate her own face and stuff, how to create a face using her own picture and stuff. And she was really impressed with it and had a ton of fun. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. And the learning curve is super easy compared to other software out there. If you're starting up 2D animation, like I know a lot of you are probably, then CrazyTalk Animator, believe it or not, has a very low learning curve, a very easy learning curve compared to other 2D software. Okay, just a reminder to people to put your questions in the Q&A panel. Okay, hopefully that answers your question there, Ethan. Alan has a question. I've done projects where I use real photographic scenes with cartoon characters. Is there anything conceptually wrong with mixing like that as opposed to all cartoon oriented? Not at all, Alan. There's quite a popular cartoon for a while. I think it's called Son of Zorn or something like that on Cartoon Network. I believe it was on Netflix for a while. Zorn, this one. Yeah, this is basically a really kind of funny cartoon, and you can see that you know, it's a cartoon character in like real life. So he's kind of sitting there with you know, real life people. And I thought it was a pretty funny cartoon. So to answer your question there, Alan, yeah, be creative. Don't worry about what other people say. Just you know, do your thing. There's really no right answer to that. No one's going to tell you like you can't do that. You know. Okay, so Tony mentions the project volume was a little bit loud. So apologies if the volume was a little bit loud for you guys there. Lowering the project volume, obviously, with this button here. The music is through this slider right here, okay? Apologies for that, Tony. Rosemary says, how about adding a tornado to the weather kit? Yeah, that's an excellent idea. And I think that, you know, we're always producing more content packs for CrazyTalk Animator or Cartoon Animator in the future here. So that's probably something we can put in the future. I think it would be like a Tasmanian devil kind of tornado even would be really cool. All right, so thanks for that suggestion, and we'll pass it on to our development team here. Yeah, so Alan says here that we can take a photo of different props, make sure the background is invisible, and then import it as a prop. Yes, definitely. That's the work process you want to go through, Alan. So you basically take a picture of a prop remove the background, make it a transparent background, save it as a PNG, and import it in. Okay, the best, most recommended way to do that. Okay, so HK Lee says, could you please repeat how to copy a motion on the time frame, on the timeline, probably, I guess. So HK, maybe you can clarify, you want the motion or the keyframe to copy, because the motion clip is just looping. Keyframes basically just Control C and Control Z. So maybe you can clarify that a bit for me. So Brian Morris asks, can you show the waveform of the audio file in the animation track view? Yep, I'll just load up that project real quick here and I'll show you where that can be found. Let's just load this one here. We actually don't even need to load a new project, but I'll show you where it is anyways. So we have to make sure we have that penguin selected. Getting my animals mixed up here. Wherever the penguin is under D3 actor, they're talking penguin right here. Okay, so make sure he's selected and F3 go into the timeline. And all the facial animation and the wave length stuff can be found in the face tracks. Okay, so under voice clip, you'll see here we have this voice clip right here. Okay, so this is the first clip, and I'm just gonna turn that down a little bit since you guys mentioned it was too loud, and turn down the music. So under the voice clip, just twirl this down like this, and there you'll find your wave length, okay, of your whatever audio you imported. Okay, and then below that, on the lips track, you'll find your Viseme keyframes. And this is where you edit the shapes of the lips and the level of expressiveness. And we talk more about that in the dialogue tutorial, okay? And facial clips is where you'll find all of your facial animations, like I mentioned before, all the templates that we added in, the transform templates, like when you go to the face key editor right here, happy, there you go, adds a clip right there, and it'll just add another clip in the face there, right? A clip in the face. All right, hopefully that answers your question there, Brian. Rodney asks a very good question here. These methods won't change in V4, will they? Nope, everything will be the same in V4, just adding a lot more features. Mostly to do with, animation-wise, it's mostly to do with the human IK and FK, which is maybe a bit of a complicated topic to explain here, but you can view the website and get a more detailed explanation. So Anthony asks, in the business presentation template, how do you speed up the text entering into the scene? Not sure which template you're talking about there, Anthony. Maybe email me separately, and I can kind of go through that. I don't want to go through too much mumbling around and bumbling around without knowing what exactly I'm doing. So maybe just email me separately. You guys can all email me, by the way. My email is kai@reallusion.com. That's kai@reallusion.com. Okay. So Anthony, just send me an email there and I'll get back to you on that. Okay, so HK says I tried making a sprite and exported with PSD and Infinity, but it failed. Again, that's probably technical troubleshooting. I don't want to go through that on this webinar. I just want to kind of keep the answers simple and straight. Any more detailed stuff like the technical troubleshooting, please just email me and I'll be able to answer that for you. Okay, so Cliff asks a good question. As an example, how large of a file is the final clip you just created? The clip, I think the video file you're talking about probably, the commercial one, let's see, 31 megabytes, okay? So when you render it, you go to render and render video. I think I just rendered, I think it was 1080p. I can't remember, but yeah, you can choose your frame size right here. Okay, yeah, it's probably 1080p right here, right? It's not really 4K, but you know, you don't really need 4K for this type of animation anyways. for the most part. Okay, hopefully that answers your question there, Cliff. Josiah asks here, how feasible would you say it is to create assets and characters without Photoshop? Yeah, so you can definitely do it without Photoshop. There's a good alternative, a free alternative called GIMP. Okay, GIMP. I highly recommend checking out GIMP if you guys are interested. That's the good free alternative. It's a little bit slower, but again, you can export PSD. Anything you can export PSD is fine. Okay. Okay, so yeah, Ethan, definitely you can help your grandpa out with the, using CrazyTalk Animator. Very simple, easy workflow, like I mentioned. Alan asks a very good question here. Will all of our content work with version 4? Yes. So we're always backwards compatible. We're not going to just basically, because people pay a lot of money for some of the content, so we're not going to make it not compatible. We have to keep it compatible with previous versions. That's why we still have, CrazyTalk Animator 2 characters in our library. Okay, so rest assured your content will not become obsolete. Okay, so Martin has a question here. Can you guys use more products to be used in YouTube, like Animate Eyes? Yeah, definitely. We're taking down any recommendations you have. Also, put that in when we email you guys the survey. Make sure you put any products or features you want in those surveys as well, because our team takes a look at those and determines what's very high in demand from our users. Okay, so any sort of features you want to add that you wish were added. You can also go to our forums and put those in the forum, or do those in the survey as well. Okay, Kay Jordan says, music in the background makes my actor look like it's mumbling when the lips should not be moving. How can I fix that? Can I turn down the volume somehow? So I'll show you quickly how to add music, because I guess it's important. Now, you don't add music to your character. What you do is you go to Project, okay, up here, and in the Project tab, or in the Project tracks rather, just close all this stuff down. You'll have Sound Effects 1, Sound Effects 2, and Music, okay? So basically 3 tracks you can add music to. Just double click in the track and load in your music, like this Brazilian one, okay?
Ever feel like the world is just passing you by?
I need to
Like you
make
keep
sure that obviously the volume is up, and we can play that nice music. That's how you add music. So make sure that you use the music track or the sound effects track to add music. If you want to add a sound effect, we can double click in there and add a boing. Okay. Just random boing. Okay. Gail asks, after this series of 3, will there be more training webinars? Yeah, we'll always have more webinars. We'll have Cartoon Animator. We're changing the name from CrazyTalk Animator to Cartoon Animator. There'll be more on those in the future as well. So yeah, just stay tuned to the webinar website. So Sean, the project files we mentioned, we'll send those to you guys later. Okay. Sean Doyle asks, the project files, where are they? We'll send those to you guys later with the emails, the survey, and all that stuff. Okay, so someone asks where you can download Photoshop. The quick answer is from the Adobe site. All right, just Google Adobe Photoshop. Anthony asks, how do you zoom in and out on the camera? Well, zooming out on the camera, I kind of walked through that earlier on. Again, in the camera track, just add a keyframe or whatever. If you want the camera to move, hold Alt, both mouse buttons, and it adds a keyframe right there in the transform track. Okay, and then we'll have let me just turn that. And you want to make sure that you remove the background. Okay, so you don't want the background in that file. Just basically repeat the same process that I did with Thingamabob. But obviously you want to remove the background. You can add the face on there as well. Okay. Okay, so Martin mentions here we can add a section where we hire animators for projects. We basically have a lot of freelance animators working for us. We don't really have a section for hiring for projects. I mean, you can obviously put your feedback in the forum for that. Okay, so Sean mentions a good point here. You can probably make your file smaller by saving it as an MOV, right? Thanks for that, Sean. MOV as opposed to a WMV or a MP4. Generally, MP4 is fairly good though. Okay, trying to get through these questions here. Jeff asks a good question. Where can I find a list of keyboard shortcuts? Go to the help file here, user manual at the very top. Help, user manual, and at the bottom here, you'll find keyboard shortcuts, global shortcuts, timeline shortcuts, and shortcuts in different modes, okay? Stage mode or composer mode. Here's where you'll find all your keyboard shortcuts. You can find a lot of stuff in the help files there. Yeah, so James mentions has a good comment here. He said, I take it we could save text as a PNG and use the same method you demonstrated to attach it to a horizontal spine, correct? Yes, that's correct, James. Pretty good way to, you can use to, manually animate the text if you want. Kind of an innovative and cool way to do it. You can also just save it as a prop. But obviously having the bone structure would be a bit more, you'd have a bit more control over it. John Niemanen asks here, instead of Photoshop, how about Affinity Photo? Yeah, I've heard a lot of people using Affinity Photo, and I've never really used it myself, but it seems we have a lot of users that use it successfully. So Affinity Photo is probably the cheaper alternative to CrazyTalk or to Photoshop there. Will CTA have, Kimber asks, will CTA have support for vector art in the future, like an Illustrator pipeline? Yeah, we already do have support for vector art. For our CrazyTalk Animator 2 characters, those are vector-based. Unfortunately, with the CrazyTalk Animator 3 characters, only the faces are vector-based right now. The bodies are not. Okay, but CrazyTalk Animator 2, if you guys want to kind of learn how to import your characters a bit better, go to their developer center here and resources, CrazyTalk Animator. I'm gonna paste this in the chat window, okay, for you guys. So you'll find all the white papers and all that stuff in here, down here at the bottom, okay? Step by step how to, all the instructions for how to import and create your own characters. I'm gonna throw this in the chat window here. Okie dokes. And let's continue on with the Q&A. Chibi eyes, please. Okay. Yeah. We've had a lot of requests for anime eyes, Martin. You can probably find some on the content store as well. Okay. So Alan has a very good suggestion: morphing between pictures that can then become props. All right. Thanks for that, Alan. We are recording these as we move along here, so we'll get that to our development team. Yeah, so Alan, the tracks, each character has a separate voice track. Only for characters. Characters only have one voice track. Props will also have a sound effects track, and the project has 3 tracks: music, sound effects 1, and sound effects 2. German Gonzalez Amado asks, when showing the next scene, anything to keep in mind? Generally, what you want to do is you want to start your project. So notice that this project ends at frame, or whatever frame it is here, 532. When you're going on to your next project, what I recommend doing is clicking and dragging the timeline or the project slider to the very beginning of your next project, and then clicking and dragging this one like this. That way you have continuity, okay? So you can basically use anything from the end of that project on the beginning of the new project, and just save as, obviously save it as a separate project, okay? That would be my advice for continuity when you're moving on to your next scene. All right, thanks Cliff. Glad you enjoyed the first part of our webinar here. Arild asks, is it possible to make a character have parts of their body in front of a prop and other parts behind? Yes, and we'll actually, Arild, we're going to be talking about this in part 2 of the webinar. So if you really want to learn about that, I definitely check it out. That's Wednesday. No, next Monday, I believe it is. I think it's the 14th. Double check on the webinar site here. Yeah, it's not in here. Okay. I think it's the 14th, I'm pretty sure, at least American time. All right. So Josiah asks, what file formats can be used to create assets other than PSD? You can use any image format, really, JPEG, PNG. However, obviously PNG is the only one that supports transparency, so that's what I'd recommend using for props. Okay, you can also import in videos as props as well. Okay, so Aniemi asks, I missed this, but why did you have to export the cloud to Photoshop, make it one object and import back? Yes, that does get rid of all the bone structure, but that allows you to, have the freedom of applying elastic motions as a prop. That's really the only reason to do that, okay? So if you want to have your character, as a prop instead of a character, then you want to save it as a PNG. Otherwise, just save it as a character. John Neiman asks, will Photoshop CS3 work? Definitely. That'll work just fine. Okay, so I believe I answered your question there, German, about the transitions there. So Josiah, the only workflow that really requires PSD is the character import and export. Okay, that's only available in the pipeline version. The pipeline version is the only one that supports PSD import for your characters. Okay, basically you export a character template and then you import that same template in. Yeah, Rosemary asks here, is it possible to better organize the content in the content manager? It would be helpful to have all the hairs in one spot, all the vehicles in one spot, etc. You can actually customize your content manager if you really want to. You just go into content manager and just right click on anything and go to find file. And basically any folders that you mess around with in Explorer, you're also going to update in the content manager here. Okay, so if you change the folders in Explorer, you'll change the folders in the content manager as well. Again, right click anything and select find file. Okay, let's get to that. So Alan, about the prop soundtrack, same thing, sound effects, or rather the prop right here, for example. Where is it here? Oh, maybe the props don't have a soundtrack. I thought the props did have one sound. No, it doesn't really. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, the props don't have a sound track for them. Okay, so apologies for that. Just the two sound effects tracks in the project. Okay, sorry about that. A little misinformation there. Can you, Brian asks, can you place markers on the timeline? Yeah, I believe you can in CrazyTalk Animator as well. I know you can in iClone. So basically all the features in iClone, we try to integrate into CrazyTalk Animator. But I can't figure out, maybe it doesn't have it. Does it insert frame? No, I don't believe we have that capability in CrazyTalk Animator. Unfortunately, apologies for that, Brian. I think we'll probably integrate that in the near future, though. To answer your question there, Alan, no videos will change when you see Crazy Cartoon Animator 4. Okay. Alan asks, any update on the release date for version 4? Currently, it's set for April, beginning of April. Okay. So anyone who's wondering about Cartoon Animator 4, beginning date set for the beginning of April there, or release date set for the beginning of April there. Okay. Karmati asks, how can we change the scene background in the middle of the project, background, etc., or add a new scene? So what I would do, I showed you the transition, okay, like this. Once this transition is in place, again, the beginning of the project will be like this part. What I can do at the beginning, let's go to the scene manager and I can click on scene here. and scene will select everything in my scene. I do not want to select the transition. Okay, so make sure the transition is not selected, and you can just delete everything. Okay, and then everything will be removed. Okay, and then you start your new project with Thingamabob in the background. Okay. Guy O'Neill asks, will there be full body turn smooth in CTA 4? We will have the full head turn. The body will be kind of partially turning from what I know right now, but I can't give any particular details on that. But we will have 360-degree head movement for sure. All right, so I think that's about all the questions. We're about 20 minutes over time here, so I think we'll sign off for now. Thanks again, everyone, so much for attending. Hopefully, you learned a lot throughout this webinar, and apologies if I went a little too fast for some of you here. But again, you can review on your own time. Just check out the video that we're going to send you later, and any questions you can also email me as well. All right, and don't forget to fill out the survey. You get a 10% discount from the content store if you fill the survey for us. And we'll probably get that to you at the end of the series. Okay, so I think most of you are coming back for part 2 and part 3. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and end off the evening. Thanks, everyone, or good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world, I guess. And hopefully I'll see you next Monday in part 2 of our webinar talking about dialogue.